Hello and welcome to the McTaggart Attack podcast. I'm Kevin McTaggart, your host, and it is Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. It's Wednesday here at the McTaggart Attack podcast, which means I'm doing it some more. It's a new thing I started recently. And, gonna keep doing it. Maybe not after this episode, but you'll find out in a minute why. I'm not sure. But, for those of you, before I get to that, For those of you listening to this podcast for the first time, I'm a stand-up comedian who lives in Vermont. And this podcast, the McTaggart Attack podcast, is my primary avenue for giving my opinion on whatever I want. Seriously, I'm thinking of not giving my opinion on social media anymore, because I'm tired of the comments. I'll still tweet, follow me at McTaggart Attack. And whatnot, but especially Facebook. I'm just pretty much done giving an opinion on Facebook because I'm tired of opinions of people and it's fucking annoying. And I think I'm just gonna stick to posting funny shit. And for any serious talk or opinions or whatever, I'm just gonna give that on my podcast. My podcast, which is the audience of my podcast, who I try to help with my podcast. Who do I try to help with my podcast is a big question all podcasters ask and answer whenever they're starting a podcast. If you're starting a podcast, the best question to ask is, who do you help? Who are you trying to help with your podcast? And I'd been in denial for it for a while in the 3 or 4 years that I've started doing this podcast. But a few weeks ago, I was finally able to come out with it that the answer that always pops up in my head that I never actually have told people is, who do I try to help with my podcast? Me. That's right. I try to help me with my podcast. And if other people enjoy this, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. Because people will like it, some people won't. I don't give a damn. Just make that clear. So this is a Monday through Friday podcast. At least it is now. I change it around every once in a while, but I like doing it Monday through Friday now. So I'm probably going to keep it that way. But today, as I said, is Wednesday. So it is Wrestling Wednesday. And it might be the last one. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this question that I'm about to ask myself, which will be the title of this episode of Wrestling Wednesday, is, why am I a wrestling fan? Seriously, I find myself asking that question to myself. A lot. Why do I like professional wrestling? Why do I watch professional wrestling? I don't know. Let's do a deep dive into this. How long have I watched professional wrestling? My entire life. When I was a little kid. I think the first time I ever watched wrestling was, World Class Championship Wrestling when I was a little kid in Massachusetts. And I think my dad had it on, and it was the Von Erichs, Kerry Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, and I think there are a few others. And I'm like, wow, who are those guys? And I'm asking, and my dad's telling me who they are. I'm like, wow, those guys are great. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, I like wrestling. All these guys, wrestling each other, fighting each other, grappling with each other. It was great. I liked it. I thought it was fantastic. And Then, like, a few years later, I see Hulk Hogan for the first time, and I'm like, wow. Yeah, I was immediately a Hulkamaniac the moment I saw Hulk Hogan and his huge muscles and Hulkamania and running wild and all that stuff. And then I've switched favorite wrestlers from time to time as a child, as a teenager, and as a young adult, and as an adult, and like it's gone from Hulk Hogan, and then The Undertaker is a favorite wrestler, of course, and Mick Foley is a favorite wrestler of mine. Just, The Undertaker is just, even before he was the American Badass, I just thought the Undertaker character is one of the greatest characters in the history of professional wrestling. Possibly the greatest. I was not a big fan of the American Badass. I always wanted him to go back to being the dark Undertaker, dark, brooding man from the dark side. And I'm so glad that he did. And I liked wrestling. I liked seeing men grapple with each other. And it was interesting, and it was good. And like, I liked some guys, and I didn't like some other guys. And I based it purely on, like, muscle tone and whatnot. And I'm like, oh, I guess I am gay. Maybe that's why I like watching wrestling. I feel like I'm answering my question. I think I answered my question earlier than I thought it was going to, because I didn't think I had an answer for the question. But yeah, I think it has a lot to do with seeing these scantily clad men grappling with each other, wrestling each other, and stuff. Yeah, I think that plays a big part of it. Another part of it, though, that I enjoy, that I don't see so much anymore, is, like, storylines. Because, like, a physique is one thing, okay? But you've got me in with that. But then you also have to have consistent storylines. And I feel like they've gotten better lately, but there have been so many goddamn plot holes over the years. Like, I'm still waiting to find out why the Nexus helped Kane bury The Undertaker back in 2010. That's how long. Yeah, I'm still waiting to find out why they did that. And I'm never going to find out. And that's aggravating. And there's other storylines, other plot holes and stuff. Like, I'm a mature person, and I like to use reason, and I like to understand things, and I make a deep dive and analytical. I'm very analytical. I think. I like to think. I'm a lot smarter, I think, than most other professional wrestling fans. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, you know? Because I feel like most wrestling fans are a bunch of fucking idiots. So, yeah, I being attracted to the men is definitely one thing. That is definitely one aspect of it. But the storylines, I think, I find them intriguing. And I just want consistency. And in the past couple of years, there's no fucking consistency. Thank God for AEW. I feel like AEW is having consistency. Thank God there's another wrestling federation, another wrestling league around for me to watch. You know? Because I only watch WWE. And now I say that I only watch WWE and AEW. So, but yeah, I need consistent storylines, wrestling. I need good promos. I needed some fucking humor in it too. Because in wrestling, they're wrestling around in tights. There's going to be silly, stupid shit going on. And it annoys me when people complain about the silly, stupid shit that goes on. Sure, there's serious stuff too, because it's a violent thing. It's a violent sport. You know, people pretend to get hurt, and sometimes they legitimately get hurt too. But yeah, it's just, that's what I want, is like consistency. I want good wrestling too. I want good, compelling wrestling. I want good wrestlers. I want people that can talk on the mic well. You know, there are people out there, especially in the WWE, that I feel like they push upon us that I do not give a shit about, whether they were a good guy or a bad guy or whatever. Don't give a damn about any of that. I'm talking about you, Baron Corbin. I'm talking about you, Miz. I don't like either of them. Because they don't do it for me as heels. They don't do it for me as faces. They probably wouldn't. I've never seen Baron Corbin as a face, but I don't think I would ever want to see him as a face. Because I don't think... I'm just not a big fan of his. But why do I like professional wrestling? But I've already answered that. I want the... I'm gay, basically. I like seeing scantily clad men wrestling each other. And I hate it when they fucking wear jeans. Just gonna go ahead and say that. But that's fine too, I guess. But it's just... have a good physique, for God's sakes. You know? That's what it is. That's what brings you in. That's what brings me in. But then I also need the compelling storylines. I need wrestlers who do well on the mic, as well as in the ring. I need that. That's why I like wrestling. I like the talk on the microphone. I like that for the most part, but the wrestling I'm not really that big into, per se. It's not a high priority on my list, but like I want good storylines, and you can't tell good storylines without having good wrestlers, and you can't have good wrestlers who can't fucking talk on the microphone. You know, and that's it. That's why I like wrestling. I figured out why I like wrestling, because I'm glad that I just spouted off on my podcast today, to just answer that question for myself, and I was able to do it. So thank you for listening to the podcast today, Wrestling Wednesday. And please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and all that stuff, so more people can listen to this podcast. And that's it. That's the bottom line. If you smell what the McTaggart Attack podcast is cooking.